Until Father Yod was satisfied, the girls from the community had to enter the tent. If the beauty refused to do her duty, she was severely punished. Father Yod used to say, "I need as many women as possible and as young as possible." On July 4th, 1922, a son was born to an American woman named Baker in Cincinnati, Ohio. The boy was named James, but for those close to him, he became Jim Edward. My father left the family early. He just went out for cigarettes one day and never came back. Jim's mother, however, was not very sad about this. Even then, a neighbor named Bragg often visited the young woman. A physical education teacher at a local school, an athlete, a mountaineer, and the owner of a health food store, this was the man who eventually replaced the boy's father. Bragg taught Jim martial arts, focusing on jiu-jitsu. In sports, the young man succeeded so much that at one of the regional competitions, he was even recognized as the strongest young man in the USA. The foster father was genuinely proud of his stepson's achievements. In 1940, when James Edward Baker turned 18, he joined the United States Marine Corps. After giving several years to the Army, Jim retired from the service. Baker told everyone that he had been awarded the Silver Star during his service, although this was not the case. The people around him, however, readily believed and treated Jim to a drink. That's how Baker realized that in America, it's not who you really are that matters, but who you present yourself to be. Soon, Jim confidently called himself a master of judo and said that at a tournament in Cincinnati, he defeated the famous Argentinian Wild Bill Winter. Of course, it was a lie. Whatever it was, James Edward Baker looked impressive, tall, athletic, very attractive man. At that time, his calling card was a classic wardrobe, tuxedos, formal shirts, and ties. Obsessed with dreams of fame, wealth, and female attention, Baker realized one day that there was nothing holding him back in Cincinnati anymore. After weighing the pros and cons, Jim moved to California, where he hoped to get a job as a stuntman in Hollywood. Baker failed to sign a contract with the film studio, but he did get to know a group of local enthusiasts who promoted sports and a natural lifestyle. These guys called themselves the Nature Boys. Jim began experimenting with his own body. He switched to raw vegetables, became interested in yoga. Through Nature Boys, Baker reached out to the popular Indian yoga Bhajan guru. Jim was deeply impressed by Bhajan's ideas. He became interested in the philosophy of Sikhism and began to grow a beard. By the end of the 1960s, Baker had developed his own teaching, which combined elements of Sikh philosophy with the Western mystical tradition. After that, Jim left Yogi Bhajan's family. In 1969, Baker managed to raise a large sum of money. These funds allowed him to open an organic vegetarian restaurant on the Sunset Strip in Hollywood. The restaurant was named The Source. The regulars there were many celebrities, including John Lennon and Marlon Brando. Things took off, and the business turned out to be so successful that soon 2 more Baker restaurants opened on the same Sunset Strip. Jim's daily earnings reached $10,000, and soon he became a millionaire. Many young people dreamed of working at The Source. They paid the highest salary here, left the most generous tips, and besides, famous musicians regularly performed on stage. In 1970, a 19-year-old waitress named Robin Popper got a job at The Source. The girl was completely fascinated by the 48-year-old bearded man, whom everyone around her called Guru. Jim Baker, in turn, also showed genuine interest in Robin. This acquaintance helped him realize his true purpose. He was destined to become a guru, a teacher of youth, a spiritual father. Baker soon married Robin Popper and took on a new name, Father Yod. Shortly after the wedding, Father Yod invited everyone to the first meditation at the Source restaurant. There were a lot of applicants, mostly young men and women from single, parent families who had left their native places and were wandering around America. Father Yod took every lost soul under his wing, surrounded him with care, and guided him on the right path. The young followers were captivated by the appearance of the kind, bearded giant, who really seemed to them like a real father. That's how Yoda's father's family came to be. Yod called his community a family from the Source. Baker himself became a father to the congregation, and Robin Popper became a mother. The family lived in the Hollywood Hills estate in the Los Feliz area. Baker rented this picturesque estate, built in 1914 for publisher Harry Chandler, for an amount significantly higher than the market value of the lease. The number of followers of Father Yoda increased rapidly. By 1972, there were already 150 people in the commune. At the insistence of Yoda's father, all his followers broke off relations with their relatives and took a single surname, Aquarius. This was due to the fact that the father foreshadowed the coming of the time of joy, the age of Aquarius. The Aquarians took turns working in Yoda's father's restaurants. He fired almost all the rest of the staff. The income from the establishments went to the maintenance of an impressive number of the estate's inhabitants. A considerable part of the funds was spent on clothes, snow-white togas, esoteric outfits. However, members of the community spent a significant portion of their time dressed as Adam and Eve. The family strictly adhered to a vegetarian diet, and meditations were conducted according to a unique method developed by Father Yod and were mandatory for everyone. Swimming together in the cold pool with my father became an important part of life on the estate. Yod claimed that this practice strengthens the body and purifies the spirit. In addition, members of the community were fond of psychedelic rock. Father Yod himself played the role of vocalist and drummer. Several albums have been recorded and released under the label of their own band, Yehovah 13. The records were sold in Yoda's father's restaurants and gained considerable popularity. Thanks to the music, Yod got the opportunity to attract new supporters to the community. More and more new people joined the family. There were many underage girls among the new arrivals, which turned into a serious problem. The parents of the young sectarians sued, and the court decided to return the girls home. Father Yod found a way out. The guru announced that all underage women of the family should marry within the community. The first family unions began to appear in the community, followed by children. The commune's firstborn was the son of a 16-year-old girl named Rai and her husband, 28-year-old guitarist Sunflower. Subsequently, 54 more children were born in the family. Father Yod himself was officially married to only one woman, Robin Popper, who was named a home in the community. However, in 1973, his father announced to his wife that he was taking a new name, Yehovah, and proclaiming himself God. In addition, the head of the family decided to take a few more wives. Yehovah allowed polygamy to all his male followers. Ahom was shocked, wept bitterly, and begged her husband not to do this to her, but Yehovah remained adamant. Soon, the newly born god had a harem of 13 women: Isis, Makushla, Heaven, Astral, Aquariana, Galaxy, Harvest Moon, Prism, Peralda, Tantalayo, Venus, Galaxy, Lovely. From these women, the community leader had 2 sons, Yod Jr. and Dandelion. Robin Ahom, the mother of the community, suffered terribly, but she strictly followed her husband's teachings and provided for the everyday life of the community in many ways. On August 14, 1974, Ahom, Robin, had a daughter who was named Tao, and this child became the only legitimate heir of Yoda's father. In December of the same year, the Source family had serious friction with the California authorities. On the one hand, the neighbors complained incessantly about the noisy and numerous neighborhood. On the other hand, the authorities received fresh statements from the parents of underage girls who found themselves inside the community. Yoda's father decided to sell the business and move to Hawaii with his family. And so they did. Things have turned out much harder on the islands than expected. The members of the commune are used to comfort, a spacious mansion, and a luxurious manor. The Aquarians did not have anything like this in their new place. The community huddled in a 3-room house, sleeping side by side on mats. The community began to disintegrate. Many left, returning to the mainland, to the usual life for ordinary Americans. On August 25, 1975, Father Yode, having no experience in hang gliding, decided to look at the world from a height. Guru jumped from a 400-meter cliff on the east coast of Oahu. The hang glider crashed onto the beach, and 9 hours later, Father Yode died. He was 53 years old. Ahom, who became the head of the Council of Mothers of the family, kept the community afloat for 2 more years, but then the commune collapsed. There were not enough funds, and there were no further prospects. All the former members of the sect dispersed to different cities in America, returning to normal life. In 2001, several former members of the community attempted to recreate the family, claiming that the spirit of Father Yoda dictated this, but the idea was unsuccessful. In 2012, the full-length documentary, The Family of the Source, was released, telling about the sect of Father Yoda. The film, shot by Jody Villa and Maria Demopoulos, included video footage shot by commune members in the 70s. A significant part of the archive was provided by Isis Aquarian, one of Yoda's father's wives, who became the main chronicler of the family. The audience saw the inner life of the sect: meditation practices, swimming in the pool, shared meals, conversations with Father Yode. One of the highlights was the performance of the Yahoha 13 band at a Los Angeles high school. Most of the family members spoke about Father Yoda with gratitude. They did not consider staying in the sect to be something terrible or abnormal. However, there were also those who claimed that what was happening had gone too far, especially after the father proclaimed himself the god Yahuwah. After the introduction of polygamy, life in the community, according to many, deteriorated. Women no longer feel safe. The most powerful moment of the documentary is the director's conversation with Robin Popper, the ex-wife of Yoda's father. The woman, not hiding her pain and rejection, spoke into the camera, holding a photo of her ex-husband in her hands. "He was just a crazy old man,"